is that the differences emerge. The differences between the two people emerge. And how well they screened in advance is how well that relationship will stay together or not. Okay? So here, what happens is, all of these, now, things get worse. Why? Because, like, let's say, raising children, for example, decreases. And why? Because if you thought you had differences, wait until the child comes along. Because then that child highlights more differences. Because, well, people are getting less sleep, they're more irritable, and they may have different ways of raising the child, or different ideas for how they're going to raise a child. Therefore, more things to synchronize about. As life goes further, more things to synchronize about. It doesn't, more and more things come on your plate, and if you haven't handled the earlier things, they just tend to pile up. Okay? And so, there is where you hit the bottom. And if you hit the bottom, many people break there. Okay? Many people end up getting a divorce there. But if people can merge their differences, or if they do a really good screening point or process, they eventually come back to the companionate love. So they might have the passion in the beginning, but then they get the companionate. With the companionate love, what this is basically a respect and fondness for each other. For example, sometimes you see, grandparents that will sit and hold each other's hand, or will look into each other's eyes every now and then, or will synchronize. They're on point. They know who's doing what. Okay, they've been doing this a long time, and so they don't need to really fight about it. They know what to do. This person's doing this doing that. Everything's happening all at once. Okay, they're synchronizing very well, to such an extent that there's numerous stories that we often find that statistically we find that it's very common for, after one person dies in the relationship in old age, and there was love between them, soon afterwards, approximately a year afterwards, the other person goes too. Okay? So that is success. That is success, that a person, that they have such a relationship with each other that their loss brings such a grief. Like many relationships today, many I see at least, they're like, I hope he dies, You're making dua that the guy dies. It's like, it would be like bad for me to get a divorce. My parents won't be happy with it. It's a social stigma. They'll be angry with me. That sort of. But if he dies, that's natural. Right? That's just okay. And some people have actually thought about it. I was counseling some people. I was like, when my husband's sleeping, I get these crazy ideas. Maybe you should contain those. That's not afterthought, though. Okay. Now this Asian American Indians, this is just a statistic, because Asian Americans are often known to, or Asians in general are known to have very strict culturally based type of arranged marriages. So that's why they do a lot of studies on them. So I was able to pull these numbers, or this research, is that Asian American Indians report higher levels of marital satisfaction than both Asian Indians and Americans combined. Meaning that the Asian Americans, what they tend to do, Asian first generation immigrants, what they tend to do just have just a full-fledged type of arranged marriage. Their parents, they bring them together and they say, all right, you guys are going to get to know each other. They're like, can I know his name first? It's like, sure, we'll let you know on the marriage day. And so they tend to have, more strict type of marriages in that way. Whereas the Americans, on the other hand, they tend to do this love-choice relationship. The Asian Americans, the interesting thing is that here's where our minds need to start thinking, is that what works for them, they tend to show more love than their arranged marriages. Why? Because they are involved in the process. So Asian American Indians, now I'm talking about Muslim and non-Muslim alike, because Hindus tend to, and Chinese, and they tend to also have arranged marriages as well, regardless if they're Muslim or not. So when they are involved in the process, and they are a partner, so they want to be involved in the process. They don't want to go over to the all the way to this side and just do the love marriages. And they don't want to have that strict arrangement just because they're like, we're Americans, we grew up here, so that's kind of a strange and foreign concept to us. But when they tend to work together, seems to show the best results. Okay, so that's something to think about. Okay, well, the other thing, I mean, is that, well, there are these, now I want to balance these two extremes, is that one should not get the idea that I'm trying to advocate for a very strict sort of arranged marriage where, you know, even the Prophet ﷺ advised that the person should go and see that person, right? So, you know, you should not do like the, what is it, the criminal lineup sort of thing, like you just like line up a bunch of people and go, that one. Right? Don't do that, okay? And if you're a parent, don't make your child do that. Because I also deal with a lot of arranged marriages, and I think that there needs to be appropriate screening. There needs to be appropriate screening between the two. And my advice to parents would be, marry them based upon what they would like, not what you would like for them. Okay? So it's like, you know, Aisha is struggling. She's not wearing hijab and stuff like that. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to ask the imam to marry her. It's like, some people think like, I'm going to fix this problem, fix the child by subbing in something that would be good for them. But that's your idea of what's good for them. They might not be thinking about that. Okay? That might be something way off. Okay? And I'm not referring to this, although I don't know if you would take such arrangements. This is up between you and your community, inshallah. in any case, this sort of thing is very culturally rooted. It diminishes choice, and we ultimately have to understand that American kids are different in the sense that American kids growing up in this society, it's much more important for them to be very satisfied in their relationships. Because in many Muslim countries, the way that people might get married is that it might be a different setup or a different social norm, or what's understood is that you get married, and if you love the person, mashallah, that's a bonus. But if you don't love them, you still got to be with them. Okay? It's just an understood thing. Right? It's like you don't have to love them, but if they're just, they take care of your rights, they're good to you, that's enough. Okay? And, you know, and that seems to work for them, mashallah, in many instances. Sometimes it doesn't work for them. But in any case, for Americans, I don't think that can be assumed. That same thing cannot be assumed, because American kids didn't grow up with that set of norms. They grew up in a different environment, with a different set of norms, as I mentioned previously. Therefore, we cannot go off on that one side. Okay? Americans want love, romance, they want poetry, they want, like, you know, that sort of thing. This is what they want. So let them have what they want, mashallah. In an appropriate way, that is. Okay, so what is it that is going to increase the chances of you having a successful marriage? Well, the idea is that human beings, they love themselves so much. They love themselves so much that they want to marry themselves. Accept an opposite gendered version of themselves. Okay? Why? Because you synchronize well. You know what you're thinking. You know the way that you like your kitchen. And therefore, if the other person likes it the same way, there's no issue. Right? You know what your goals are, where you'd like to go in life. If the other person wants those same goals, there's no issue. Right? But reality, unfortunately, doesn't work that way. So, you know, everybody is not paired with their equivalent opposite gendered half. This person usually has a mind too. Surprise. You know, the other person tends to have a mind as well. And experiences and history and background. Therefore, what we want to get from this is the more similar, the better. Okay, the more similar, the better. Now, I want to make a disclaimer that sometimes there can be compatibility, in the sense that you have this strength, and another person has another strength. But you're compatible. It doesn't conflict with each other. Okay, I'm talking about that's non-conflictual. For example, one person's really good with finances, and another person's really good with children. Okay, and so neither of them want each other's responsibilities, and so they get together and they're like, "Great, you do that, I do this, mashallah." Okay, it seems to work out. The thing that I'm talking about is the similarities that are non-compatible. Meaning, let's say, like one person wants to have 10 children, you want to have 2. Okay? That, you're going to have, somebody's got to give one direction, there's got to be some compromise. Okay? Or you want a particular lifestyle, and the other person wants another. There's got to be some compromise there. Okay? You have to make some form of decision. These are not like ones where you can just say, all right, you do your thing, I do my thing. Okay, so similarities engender less of that curve to merge. Okay, remember this curve? The curve is the differences that they have to merge. But if there's less of the differences, less curve to merge. Okay? The other thing that I'd like you to know is that opposites, going hand in hand with the similarities, opposites don't attract, with the exception of genders. Okay? The opposites, a lot of times people say opposites attract, this is like a saying, and so this is, they find that the more similar in values, religion, even physical appearance, that if for one person is really really attractive and the other person is, nobody really looks twice at them, putting it politely, then to have such big differences or gaps between them tends to be a source of issues. So even people who are matched on that sort of thing is more successful. Okay? Now this thing about opposites attract, people think opposites attract in the beginning, not later. Meaning that in the beginning, you think that you have, say, for example, an introverted versus an extroverted person. The person is very outgoing, the other person is very reserved. Okay, well, in the beginning, you think that's cool. They're like all about this energy. They want to take you places you've never been before, and they want to do all these exciting activities, have these gatherings and functions. But then 5 years later, that person still wants to do that, and you just want to have like family time at home, and they just want to go and socialize. They want to go to party. Halal party, like an Eid party, and they want to, and they're socializing with all these people, and you don't really like that, okay? That could be the very thing that attracted you to that person could actually be the thing that you hate most, which is what studies actually find. That the things that attracted people in the beginning tends to be the things that they hate most later. Okay, because people tend to have something not within themselves that they think is cool in somebody else, but then they realize that I don't really want that because I'm still me, and I'm comfortable with only certain things. Okay. Okay, so here's the other point. Marry for taqwa. Okay? Now, you may have heard this numerous times. I'm sure everybody's heard this hadith before as well. Is that a woman is married for 4 things. Her wealth, her family status, her beauty, or her piety, taqwa. And so choose taqwa. Okay? Now, well, this sounds great. It sounds great, mashallah. Everyone's heard this, right? But why? Think about this. That if a person marries somebody who has taqwa, that when you are in a situation where, let's say you are in a situation where you hate to do something good for that person. You just had an argument, you've been having like a rough week, and you just don't even want to look at the person's face, okay? Let alone do anything good for them. What is going to make you uphold your rights to them? What is going to make you do that good? Taqwa. Because the only thing that's going to drive you to do your responsibility is the fear of Allah. Because you're not doing it for that person. because you hate that person right now. But you're doing it for the sake of Allah. And that is taqwa. And you know that you will anger that person, they will anger you. But if they have taqwa, they will continue to do what is required of them for you because they fear Allah. And this is what it produces, a sense of selflessness. It provides some common ground to reason off of. So if a person has taqwa, then they generally have a lot of love for Quran and Sunnah. And therefore, if you tell them that this is not right, we shouldn't do this, this is against Quran and Sunnah, they will say, Sami'na wa ta'ana, that I hear it and obey. Okay, mashallah, you're right. Even though I hate it, even though I don't want to do that, but you're right. You're right. This is the Quran and Sunnah. This is correct. You make a good point. Yes, we will go with this decision, go with this rule. Okay? They're more open to the redirection of the imam. This is one of the biggest issues that we have. Like, I get a lot of referrals from imams. And sometimes I work with imams. So they'll do the religious counseling sort of thing, the fatwa sort of stuff, I'll do the counseling end of things. And many instances, somebody doesn't want to show up. Okay? Like, I'm not going to come. It's not your problem. It's not your marriage. You butt out. Okay? Now you're talking to the imam. You know, so the imam has a certain level of authority, and that person, if they respect that, there's a sense of selflessness and no pride in them that they'll come and they'll say, okay, you know what, let's arbitrate, let's be open to changing my position or view or perspective, because this is the right thing to do. Okay? So this is when, if you engender, if you have taqwa, then it will increase the likelihood that you will have a good marriage. Okay, well this portion I'm going to continue after Salah. But I just want to give you a little brief. The question is that, well, mashallah, you present like this good way of like saying that similarities engender, you know, a good way of similarities increase the likelihood. You know, and you say that don't do those like just solely arranged marriages, like blind arranged marriages sort of thing. But you're also saying that like love and getting to know each other so closely also decreases the chances of success in your relationship. So how do you get to know who you want to marry without getting to know them? That's the dilemma, right? And then you are asking the question. I asked the same question. I said, so I'm not allowed to do that, right? Okay, fine. So how do I get to know the person? Like, I'll pick for you. It's like, no, I want to be part of that. And so we have to think about how we're going to do this. So I'm going to provide some ways of doing this, inshallah, some ways of thinking about this that might be able to assist in merging or assessing the person whom you want to marry prior, without falling in love with them, or without having a pre-marital relationship with them, and without doing the, you know, blind, criminal lineup thing. Okay? So after Salat al-Isha, then we will continue, inshallah ta'ala.